everyone. I'm Catherine Honeycutt, the Communications Specialist for BBB, and I'm pleased to welcome you to our Business Builders webinar, Lost in Translation, 3 Secrets to Successfully Communicate in Times of Chaos and Uncertainty. So today, during the webinar, we have Christina Albert with us. She is the executive coach and leadership advisor of Leadership Excellence, LLC. And she's going to share some simple strategies of powerful conversations, how to become a successful and effective communicator, which we all need, especially during these times. We're all communicating, we were just talking about, in completely different ways than we ever have before. So, Christina, we're so excited to have you. I will say that if anyone has questions, feel free to put them in, the chat box. We'll be sure to get to them. But without further delay, I'd love to pass it off to you, Christina, for your words of wisdom today.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Catherine, and welcome everyone, and thanks for joining. And today our topic is going to be Lost in Translation, 3 Secrets to Successfully Communicate in Times of Chaos and Uncertainty. And before I jump into the content, I did want to address the fact that we are in very extreme times right now. And there's a lot of content coming out about how to pivot and how to deal with the current crisis. So I wrestled with whether I should present all of this content solely based on what's happening right now. But as we go through the presentation, you will notice that I decided against it. And that's because so much about successful communication is really based on fundamentals and essentials. Only with that foundation in place, we are able to build and improve our communication skills. And so today, we're mostly going to focus on the key principles of powerful conversations, but for sure we will also talk about how to apply them right now during these unprecedented times and where to pivot. Because that way you are not only prepared for the current times, but also for the longer run. All right, with that disclaimer out of the way, I am going to switch to the presentation, and I'm gonna stop my video because I do have a tendency to make wild hand gestures, and that can be highly distracting. So you're welcome. All right, and I also want to let you know that I will invite you to interact as we go along here, so have your chat available to you. And at the end of the presentation, we're gonna do some Q&A. So please keep your questions until the end. All right, first thing I want to ask you, have you ever felt like this? Imagine you're having an important conversation with another person and you really want a specific message to get across. You feel absolutely certain that the other person understands what you mean, but then days later you have to realize they didn't, which led to a misunderstanding, confusion, maybe a missed deadline, or even a bad turn in a client relationship. So, can you relate to this? Well, the good news is you are not alone. And it's frustrating, I know, because you're accomplished, you're smart, but you wouldn't believe how often it happens. How often communication ends in an error or mistake. So today is really about understanding what can get in the way of successful communication, but also what is necessary to have an effective conversation. And what I promise to do, I will provide you with a structure and a system so you can bring all your talents and your brilliance to the table and then maximize them. So you become an even stronger communicator than before. And here is how we're gonna do this today. We will uncover the mystery of great communicators. You will learn 3 simple strategies to embrace your communication style so you can be more confident and effective in all your future conversations. And we will factor in the 3 essential elements of leadership excellence so you can maximize your success. Plus, we're going to spend a little time integrating and implementing to create lasting impact. And the truth is, there is a lot to learn. And I want to make sure that we stay connected and I can continue to support you beyond today. So if you want to stay in the loop for upcoming resources, all you have to do is send me an email to Christina@leadershipexcellence.consulting. And I recommend you do it now, because for fun, and I know we could all use some fun right now, I'm going to give away at the end. I'm going to do a drawing for this book, The Strangest Secret by Earl Nightingale. It's one of my favorites, a quick read, very motivational, actually the perfect fit for the current times. And for those who are feeling like, yeah, I just met you, Christina, I'm not going to send you an email, that is totally fine. You'll get another chance to get into the drawing towards the end. All right, so now that we have the housekeeping out of the way, I want to hear from you. You have a lot of choices how to spend your time. So I want to know, and you can just put this in the chat area, why is this topic important to you? What is it that made you say, you know what, I'm going to take an hour and invest it here instead of investing it somewhere else? So just put it in the chat. Doesn't need to be a novel, just a few words. Why is this topic important to you? Sorry. So, and this is the audience participation portion of the presentation. So please go ahead and put just a few words in the chat. I really want to make sure it's not just me talking at you the whole time. Here we see something coming up. All right, Catherine says, so I can better communicate with my work team. Oh, yes, indeed. You know what? This is so crucial right now. We're all working remotely. We can't sit together. We can't get into a meeting room together. So how do we communicate properly? How do we get our messages across? I like that, Catherine. And then we have one more comment: to make sure we make it past the pandemic. Oh, yes, indeed. Absolutely. And you know what? I believe
Christina, I think you're muted.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There you go. Now I can hear you.
Oh, all right. So I was just responding to one comment that said to make sure we make it past the pandemic. And I just said, it is indeed so important right now during these very crazy and chaotic times to communicate even more. And I will tell you that a little bit later on. There are even studies that show us that in times of chaos, in times of change, people are looking for more frequent and more transparent communication. So I love those comments. Thanks for sharing that. And I totally agree. All right. Now, before we move on, I want to quickly give you my background so you can also get an idea where all of this comes from. And then we'll jump right into the content. So this is me now, and you might have already heard my accent. I'm a German expat currently living in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I'm proud to say that I have my own coaching practice, Leadership Excellence LLC, which really allows me to follow my passion to help and coach people. And in normal times, I get to travel and spend time with people who are most important to me. So I'm pretty much in my happy place right now. But it wasn't always like that. I had a corporate job. I was working as an HR director in one of the biggest pharma companies worldwide. And I was running around like a crazy person, pleasing everyone, never saying no, taking on too many projects, basically working 24/7. And I kept doing this actually until my body told me it was enough and that I had to speak up. So I started to communicate, saying no to some projects, delegating some tasks, and setting reasonable timelines. And honestly, that was a game changer for me. Because as soon as I was more vocal and more specific with my communication, I was able to gain back control, live up to my real potential, and enjoy life again. And here I mean life outside of work. And through all these personal and partly painful learnings, and through the input of many senior leaders and experts I worked with back in those times, I developed this framework of leadership excellence. And what we're going to learn today about communication is actually incorporated in it. It's this system that helps my coaching clients, whether they are business owners, corporate leaders, or individual contributors, to get to that next level in their career, where they can celebrate more successes and experience more balance in their life. And today I'm going to share that with you too. Now, you might be wondering if all of that also applies to you. And here I want to point out that this framework is not just for leaders in the sense of people managers. This is for everyone, because in my eyes, or in my understanding, we are all leaders in one or another way, because we all influence others and we all make a difference to others. So leadership excellence means really your own excellence to lead and thrive in your career and life. Now, from all these experiences, I've learned 3 things for a fact. Anyone can learn how to communicate successfully and effectively. To be a great communicator, you must always be prepared. When you're intentional, communication can be easy. Winging it does not work. So the first thing we're going to do is uncover the mystery of great communicators. And here is the truth. There isn't much of a mystery about them. It's actually pretty simple. Great communicators know that the key to success is basically the planning before the actual conversation, because that creates the necessary foundation that allows them to shine during the conversation. And it's not that they spend hours and days on this. What they do is, before they communicate, they take a step back and get clear about 3 things: their audience, their intent, and their message. And of course, there's more to great communicators than just the planning piece, and we'll get into that in a couple of minutes. But what really differentiates great from good or moderate is the intentional preparation before the conversation. Now, you might have expected something groundbreaking here, and now you're thinking, that's it? Is that all? Well, it is and it isn't. Because the reality, and I'm sure you already know this, is that successful communication is not that mysterious. It is actually pretty stable and reliable, which brings me to the good news today. The foundation of communication has not changed in our current chaotic times. It is still mostly about planning, practicing, and then perfecting it. So let's jump into number 2. You're going to learn 3 simple strategies how to embrace your communication style so you can be more confident and effective in all your future conversations. But before we get into the details here, let's first address the mindset. Because if we don't address the mindset first, then no matter what we learned here today, it's easy to snap back doing what we've always done. So the tool here is a simple, single question that gently but persistently shifts your perspective. Here's the question: am I willing for this to be easy? And I know that sounds crazy. Actually, I think that sounds crazy for the time we're living in. But I promise you, our brain is essentially a yes man. And so if our primary thinking is, this is hard, this is difficult, this is challenging, our brain is going to turn around and say, you got it. I'm going to put obstacles in your path. I'm going to make this as difficult as possible for you. By using this question, am I willing for this to be easy? We are working in harmony with the way our brain is built. It is built to give you answers in alignment with the direction you are thinking. So when you say, am I willing for this to be easy? Your brain seeks out the simplest creative answers. And let me underpin that message with a quote from Brian Tracy, who's a successful speaker and author. He says, Communication is a skill that you can learn. It's like riding a bicycle or typing. If you're willing to work at it, you can rapidly improve the quality of every part of your life. So if we look back into the framework I showed you before, communication is just one piece of the people element. But in my eyes, it is the most important one, because it naturally influences and impacts all the others and serves as key factor in reaching your own personal excellence. All right, now let's get started with a little exercise. So I want to ask you for your interaction here. And here we go. As a first step, think of one unsatisfying conversation you had in the last 2 weeks that ended in a misunderstanding, misinterpretation, lack of outcome, or simply didn't go as you had expected. And then in a second step, let's go a bit further and focus on one key element of the communication that drove the lack of success. And I listed some examples on the slide here. So it could be no listening, not being prepared, being off topic, wrong timing, etc., etc. And if you want, take out a piece of paper and just write down 1 or 2 bullet points as a reminder for you. Now I will give you, let's say, 1 minute, maybe a bit more to do this. And I know this is the speed round. And then I'd like to invite you to share what you discovered. Okay, well then, ready and go. All right, you got about 10 seconds left. And time. So what I would hope you got out of this is a moment of awareness, because this is typically where it starts. Realizing and identifying what is not working well up until today, and then being willing to work on this. But now let's hear from you. I would like to invite you to type in the chat what you just discovered during the exercise. Just a few words, doesn't need to be long. What did you realize or identify? Is there a certain pattern in communications that went the wrong way? Anything you want to share with us? I'm not sure if my chat is broken or if you're not super chatty today, but please feel free to share what you just discovered. Oh, here we go, Catherine. So my husband and I had a miscommunication about dinner one night last week. We picked up dinner on the way home from work. He picked up dinner on the way home from work, but I had already prepared supper at home. The element of not checking with one another first led to this misunderstanding. We were both coming from good place, but just forgot to tell one another. You know what, Catherine, that's a beautiful example of how a miscommunication is taking place, because you're busy with your life, he's busy with his life, you're assuming things and then not checking in with each other, and here we go. So definitely one of the elements we're going to talk about later on is to follow up, check in with each other, just to make sure you're on the same page, right? Super important. And then we have one more comment: not listening. Oftentimes we're distracted and not giving undivided attention. I love that comment. Yes, I totally agree. I think that's one of the main reasons that communication is not working out properly, because we are kind of distracted all the time with so much going on around us, and it's sometimes really hard to focus and then listen intensely, listen deeply. And so we're going to talk about that later on. This is active listening, which really makes a difference, especially in times of chaos and change. So thank you all for sharing that. I love those comments, and they're all spot on. So great job. All right, now moving on to, well, that's what you already did, what to discover. Moving on to the core of the presentation, where I'm going to reveal the 3 secrets of successful communication. So are you ready for this? Okay. Now, secret number 1, prepare. Secret number 2, adjust. And secret number 3, follow up. Now, I would love to read your mind, because I'm sure that many of you are wondering, what's the secret here? That is nothing new to me. And you're right. And you will realize that not so much of the following content is really a secret. And that's because communication isn't built on surprises, mysteries, or secrets. It is first and foremost built on basics and fundamentals. And that is actually what I would hope to get across today, that we remind ourselves of the simple but effective key elements of great communication, and that we incorporate them more and consistently in our daily conversations, even more so in the current chaotic and uncertain times. Now, I will walk you through each of these principles separately, while I will also illustrate them with some examples. So let's start with prepare. You might remember I've highlighted this before when I talked about the mystery, or actually the truth about great communicators. But honestly, I think it can't be stressed enough how crucial it is to prepare your communication and build your foundation. You know, I've seen it so many times back in my corporate days that the most important part in any transformation or change management process was the preparation of the communication plan beforehand. We could have perfectly executed on everything else, but the differentiator between success or failure was always the preparation phase. And specifically that means, and I will repeat what I said earlier, and by the way, repetition is a key element of successful communication. We're going to talk about it later. So before you send a message, before you have a conversation, before you communicate in any way, take a step back and get clear about 3 things: audience, intent, and message. And now let me share a personal story. When I grew up, I was always impressed by the communication skills of my dad. As part of his job, he's been giving many lectures and presentations around the globe, and also at family gatherings, he spontaneously stood up and told a fantastic speech. Now, guess what? And I only learned this later. He always prepared himself before speaking. And even if that meant making notes on a napkin just 2 minutes before he started to talk. Not really mysterious, right? But extremely effective. Now let's break it down a bit further. I keep telling my clients, know your audience. And by that, I don't mean you should know them like in and out, but be as clear as possible about who's going to be in front of you. What's the size of your audience? What's their role or seniority level? What kind of personality or preference do they have? Because knowing all of that helps significantly to customize your message so your audience will understand and perceive it correctly. Now, this is a general principle that always applies regardless of the external conditions, whether being in the midst of a pandemic or in a very prosperous time. moving on to intent. I hope you agree that there should always be a purpose behind why we're communicating. Because honestly, there's really no point in speaking up if we don't have a solid reason to do so. So before we go into any kind of communication, let's be clear about what we're trying to accomplish. And that's even more important right now in these chaotic and uncertain times. So always make sure the intent of your message is 100% clear. Now, what's left? The message. What is it you want to say or write? Is it positive or negative? Should it be short or long? Do you need to add details, facts, background information, etc., etc.? What advice I give my clients is to put themselves in their audience's shoes and to ask themselves if they would understand their message or if there is still room for interpretation. Because what I learned from my own experience is the clearer, simpler, and more understandable the message, the less chance for assumptions and prejudices to get in the way. So let's move on to secret number 2, adjust. And what I mean by that is adjust your communication style. And that includes wording and tone, active listening, and choosing the right medium. Now, did you know that 10% of conflicts is due to difference in opinion, but 90% is due to wrong tone of voice? That's unbelievable, right? But it does make sense because our tone is naturally present in all forms of communication, in the way we phrase our message and the words we choose to use. And you know what? This becomes really critical in written communications because there's no voice, no facial expression, and no body language to convey the intent or emotion behind your message. So let me give you a real example of how this looks like. And it's actually a situation that happened to me back in my corporate job. It's one day where my boss came to me and said, "Christina, the project deadline is in 2 days. There's still a lot to do and we don't have much time left. I need you to put in more effort in extra hours from now on." Well, how did I perceive that message? I heard crazy deadline, extreme workload, and that I need to do better because it hasn't been good enough yet. So how did I feel afterwards? Stressed, disappointed that my boss was not satisfied with my work, and actually frustrated because the hard work I had put in already was never appreciated. Now consider my boss would have said the following instead. "Christina, our project deadline is Wednesday, and I know how hard you've been working on it. I hope you'll continue giving it your best to make this project a success." Did you experience it? While the meaning is mostly the same, the tone and the specific words make such a huge difference. And this is even more relevant right now, where it's so important to empathize with others. We are all going through this craziness and we are all looking for certain comfort and reassurance. So when you communicate these days, remember to always add a pinch of empathy in your wording and tone. What is active listening? I'm sure you've heard of the phrase before, and it's actually something you're trained on when you become a coach. So it's really my bread and butter business. And as its name suggests, active listening means really actively listening with all your senses. And that includes both verbal and non-verbal messages, such as maintaining eye contact, nodding your head, agreeing by saying yes, or just smiling. Now, especially in times of change and uncertainty, in times of working remotely, active listening becomes even more critical. So what can we do? We can give more space to the other person. Listen in closely. Let them experience a non-judgmental and safe environment so they can speak about their feelings and their struggles. And what you will realize is that with active listening, the other person usually feels more at ease and then communicates communicates more openly and honestly. So if you ask me, this is one of the most important tools to have a successful communication, especially in our current times. Now, just remember from the comment before that not listening can be such a big issue when it comes to misunderstandings, miscommunications. So here we go again. Active listening is really key these days. Now, are we addicted to emails? Or why does an average office worker send or receive around 121 emails each and every day? And that's only the business emails. But ask yourself, is email always the best choice for getting a point across? Maybe not. Just think about all the situations where an email led to a misunderstanding or misinterpretation. Instead, it might be worthwhile just to pick up the phone or to schedule a face-to-face meeting, or these days to have a video chat, just in order to really ensure you're making yourself clear and your message is understood. And I included one more data reference on the slide. You can see it here. It says that communication is only 7% verbal, but 93% non-verbal, meaning body language and tone of voice. So that is definitely something we need to keep in mind. And especially because we're living in such a visual world right now more than ever. We are forced to communicate remotely. We are stretched out of our comfort zone. I mean, just take this session as an example. Normally, we might have met face-to-face today. But here we are using a video conference so we can still all be connected. So these days, when you have a conversation, try to set up most of them as video chats using Zoom or Skype or any other platform. Because this way you can see each other, read facial expressions from each other, and interact more naturally and authentically. And with that, we're moving straight to the third secret, follow up. And this is your final strategy to really make sure that your communication was successful and understood. And your specific tools here are paraphrasing, repetition, and timely check-in. Now, paraphrasing should typically take place at the end of a conversation, where you summarize what has been said, discussed, or agreed, so that you can ensure you're both on the same page and you're confident there are no misunderstandings or misinterpretations. And by the way, there is one more benefit to this tool. It significantly limits room for assumptions, stereotyping, or prejudices. Repetition. I guess and I hope that's a no-brainer. Never ever underestimate the power of repetition. It is for sure one of the most critical elements of successful and effective communication. And that's even scientifically proven. Because the more someone hears something, the more the brain responds and remembers. So when you say something more than just once, the listener has the opportunity to digest and absorb what's being said, and accordingly has a better chance of understanding and internalizing it. And let me add one more point. Especially in times of change and uncertainty, like the ones right now, people seek for frequent and transparent communication. And that's even underlined by a recent report that says that 63% of employees asked for daily updates during COVID-19. So keep all of that in mind and repeat, repeat, repeat. Now here comes the final tool to make sure your communication was successful, the timely check-in. What do I mean by that? It could be an email, phone call, a face-to-face meeting, or maybe a video chat that takes place not too long after the initial communication. You basically check in whether the other person or group has understood your message clearly and knows what's expected from them, if anything. And it's also a chance for you to ask for first results or to see if you can offer your support. So definitely a great tool to make sure that the communication didn't get lost in translation or in the shuffle of our busy lives. And that becomes even more relevant right now, with so much going on around us, so much distraction, with working from home all the time, kids in the house, worries about your and your family's health. It is even more important now than ever to check in regularly and to see how the other one is doing. Now with that, we're at the end of the 3 secrets, and I hope this has been valuable and a good reminder for you and left you with the desire to have even more successful and effective conversations. Because that's when the beauty happens and communication becomes fun and rewarding. So don't forget to always prepare, adjust, and follow up. But we're not at the end of the presentation yet. What we're going to do now is we're going to step back, we're going to zoom out from the topic communication, because this is only one piece of the puzzle and there's so many more elements that need to be addressed in order for you to reach that next level of success in your life. So this is what we're going to do as a last step today. We will factor in the 3 essential elements of leadership excellence so you can maximize your success. Now, I will quickly go over each of these elements and invite you to evaluate your existing efforts and identify areas of strength and areas for development and improvement. And you will see how all of that relates to your communication style and how it impacts your conversations. All right, let's get started with the first element. People. People matter most. This is where everything starts and ends. The people around you, your clients, your team, your boss, but also your family and friends. They all take part in building your leadership. And when it comes to people, I believe there are 3 critical sub-elements. Number 1 is communication. And I already walked you through the structure and tools how to become a stronger communicator. But I would also like to share a success story with you. It's actually one of my clients. She's a business owner with her own insurance company, and she was really struggling with client communication and follow-up. Things just didn't work the way she wanted it to be, and she realized that lots of the deals failed just because of miscommunication. So we started working together, identified gaps, but also opportunities, and then implemented the 3 strategies: prepare, adjust, and follow up. And guess what? A couple of weeks later, she felt more confident and comfortable with conversations. And her frustration went significantly down and her energy level up. And she had more successful client relationships than ever before. And that's not just one example. This is how it usually works when you have the right structure and tools in place. Now, as to the other 2 sub-elements, I want to quickly focus on trust. Because in my eyes, this is the foundation for every successful relationship, whether in business or in private. So think about your relationships. Are people coming to you to share their thoughts? Do they feel comfortable to speak up in front of you? If you were to rate yourself, is that an area where you stand out or where you could improve? And with that, let's move to the second element, passion. Something I've seen over time is that when you're passionate about what you do, you will interact from an authentic and inspiring place and eventually be more successful. Now, passion is based on 3 elements: values, vision, and motivation. And being a business owner myself, I know how important it is to have your values and vision clearly defined, because essentially this translates into your goals and your overall agenda. And that's why, for example, when I take on new clients, this is the first exercise we do together. We identify their core values and vision and get them started to build their goals and their agenda forward. So my question to you is, are you clear about your own values and where do you see yourself in the next 1 to 3 years? Now, there's also a very timely aspect to this, Because right now we're in a place where we're doing a lot of revisioning and pivoting. So you might be looking back into your goals and do some adjustments. I know I did. For example, I had planned for quite some in-person speaking events. And now look at me, I'm doing everything virtual. All right, let's go on to the last element, personality. What is it that you bring to the table and what makes you unique? Because that defines your personality and differentiates you from others. Now, looking at the sub-elements, let's quickly focus on self-awareness. It's such a timeless yet timely topic, and it also influences our communication skills. Because when we are mindful and we're reflecting on our behaviors and actions, we better understand the emotions of the people around us, and we're able to engage and respond to them in a whole different way. And let me share this. I've seen it firsthand with some of my clients, how improving self-awareness can lead to a whole different level of maturity, inner peace, and balance. And in many cases, it even led to more successful relationships and new career opportunities. So this is for sure an area where I invite you to assess yourself and identify whether it's something you're already good at or something you need to improve. Now, bigger picture. The areas that you just identified as strengths or something where you're good at, keep on doing them. Because as we always look to make improvements in our lives, it's so easy to focus on what needs improving and let go of what's working. So anything that works great right now, you want to make sure to keep doing. But anything that you identified as developmental areas, you want to start addressing these things. Now, specifically speaking about communication, you can do another evaluation and look at how do these elements each impact your communication style, and then what you need to do to get those things tuned up so that you're aligning each of these elements with your communication. And what happens when you put all of this together, and it might seem like a lot of detail, and frankly it is, but if you're intentional and detailed about what you're doing, you will get better results with less effort. All right, I'm racing against the clock here and I want to make sure I get everything in so I can serve you at the highest level. So now it's time to integrate and implement to create lasting impact. So first thing is that all of these things, good ideas, but without taking actions, it's just a pleasant, maybe mildly amusing hour that we spent together here. So what I want you to do right now is identify one bite-sized action that you can take in order to move forward and not lose momentum. That's the first step. The second piece is I want you to take the time to think about and imagine what is possible here. Because right now we worked a lot on left brain stuff, all the logical stuff, all the pragmatic stuff. But let's step into the imagination, because we've got this creative center of the brain that we have to bring into play in order to get the most out of our efforts. So right now, I want to invite you to put down your pen, put down your phone, put everything down for a minute, and we're going to tap in those creative centers for a moment. Now, if you feel comfortable, you can close your eyes at this point, and I want you to take a deep breath, and I'd like you to imagine having powerful conversations that you actually enjoy. Conversations where your message always comes across and is clearly understood. Communication isn't stressful anymore. You feel comfortable and confident. You've got a structure and all the tools you need. You know exactly how to prepare your next message and you feel ready for your next conversation. You know how to use your communication to address your needs, to speak up, and to build trustful and successful relationships. You do this with confidence and consistency and with ease. Now take another nice deep breath and open your eyes. Is that a vision that works for you? I imagine it is. And the next thing to consider is really that there's one challenge with making changes. And that is you're a busy person. So how do you keep this level of focus and inspiration week after week after week so you really start seeing results? Now this brings me to the third piece, which is your support system. When you're thinking about what you want and need, who do you have in your corner who's able to help and support you when you need it the most? Now, a lot of you might be getting that support through the Better Business Bureau or maybe your own networks. But if you don't have that support, I invite you to consider working with me. So if you're looking into significantly improving your communication skills or another area of the Leadership Excellence Framework, let's just have a conversation and get clear what it's actually going to take to make that happen. So what I'm offering today is a complimentary discover call to explore the possibility of working together further. It's a great option if you're feeling stuck and not sure why, or you've been looking for some kind of support and can't picture what it would look like. The calls are 100% complimentary, but they're limited in number and intended for people who are really committed to excelling and growing in the next 6 to 12 months and who are willing to invest in themselves. So if that sounds like you, then on this call, I'll walk you through a process to identify your top opportunities for growth. Then we'll decide together how to work together further, or if to work together further, to help you maximize those opportunities. And I take this time personally because working together is an investment. And I want us both be 100% confident this is a great fit. Now, it's very easy to get on my calendar. You see the link on the page, booktodiscover.s.me. Just pick your date, pick your time, and you're right on the calendar. And if you're thinking, well, that sounds interesting, I'll just write down the link. I will get you later. Well, I'm going to give you some incentive to schedule now so all this clarity and good intention doesn't get lost in the shuffle of your busy day. So when you schedule in the next 30 minutes, you get a free gift, which is the digital copy of this webinar. All right, now it's time for the prize drawing right before we wrap up. And I know that some people joined a little bit later, so I explained that before at the beginning, that we're doing a drawing here today. And now you have a second chance to get into it by sending me an email. And I'm going to give away a hard copy of the book, The Strangest Secret. It's going to come in the mail, and all you have to do is send me an email to Christina@leadershipexcellence.consulting with the subject line webinar. All right, I'm going to give you a moment to enter the drawing and to send your email, and then I will show you my super high-tech way of choosing a winner. So let me restart my video. All right, I hope you can all see me again. And for those who joined a little bit later, welcome.
And Christina, I also went ahead and put your link in the chat box to the book to discover.as.me. So everyone, you can go there as well to click the link. But be sure to send her your email real quick.
Awesome. Thank you, Catherine. So let's see. And I know we're kind of running against the time here, and you might not have had a chance to send me your email. I see that Louis put in his email in the chat. Does that mean you want to enter the drawing, Louis? I assume
I think
so.
it does. Oh, he's sending you an email now, he says.
Awesome. Awesome. And as we don't have that many participants, I'm pretty sure we're going to find the winner very easily. Normally, my high-tech way of picking a winner is opening my email inbox, which I just did, and then scrolling through through the emails and just clicking on one. But again, as we don't have that many participants here today, I think it will be rather easy to identify the winner. And so I guess our winner today is going to be Luis. So yay, Luis, you are the winner of this book, The Strangest Secret. Now you do me one favor, send me an email with your mailing address so I can put that book into the mail right away and get it to you. Awesome. And
awesome.
With that, let me conclude by sharing one last quote from Pat Riley. It's actually one of my favorite quotes, and it says, "Excellence is the gradual result of always striving to do better." Now with that, I hope I inspired you today to take action and move forward to your own excellence. And here we go. We are ready to take on questions. Now, if anyone has a question, you can put it in the chat, or I guess come on, unmute yourself and speak to us. And for those who need to leave right now, that's fine as well. Just want to give those who have a question the chance to ask me.
Yeah, thank you so much, Christina, for your time. And for those on the call, if you would like to be unmuted, you can just raise your hand or put your question in the chat and I can unmute you if you want to ask your question that way. But I actually have a question that I'll ask while we wait for people to throw some in. You know, with a lot of people working from home, a lot of events being canceled,
Right.
You know, how are you staying connected with others? And, you know, especially in the networking sense, you know, if you can't go to events, you know, how are you keeping up that network, whether it's a professional network or networking with friends? How are you personally doing that?
That's a very good question. I love it. And, you know, I just said it the other day, I feel more connected now than ever before. And I'm actually attending more networking events now than ever before, which is kind of interesting. But what happened, or what I saw happening, is that in the first couple of weeks, everyone realized, okay, we're not going to have any face-to-face events anymore. So we got to find alternatives. And here comes in the agility part of our brain. And people came up with virtual events, virtual meetings over Zoom, over, I don't know, Microsoft meetups, very different solutions. And so they were offering, or starting to offer, more of those virtual networking connections, kind of coffee and connect, whatever they call them, just to dial in and share what's happening right now, and maybe getting some input from others on how to move forward. What are some tools and tricks to stay positive? And so that's what happened on the professional side. And I personally picked more of those events just to see with different groups of people how they are doing, what I can learn from them, but also sharing my experience and what I've kept doing over the last couple of weeks. And personally, I think, and also if you have a team, or if you are working in a team, in a group of people, set up most of your meetings and most of your conversations as video chats. If it's FaceTime, Skype, right now there's so many platforms out there, and many are even free, so you don't have to pay anything. But really make sure you have this face-to-face, this visual aspect of the conversation, because otherwise, when you're on the phone, number one, you get distracted. You don't see how the other person is responding. They might fake something that's not real, but if you see each other, it's really hard to lie, and it's really hard to kind of fake a smile when you're not feeling like it. So you would see if your teammate is having a hard time, or you would see if the kid is running around like crazy in the back, things like that, you know? So my number one advice right now these days is have as many video chats as possible with the people you care about, with the people you need to interact regularly, because this will help you to be more connected and be more more present with each other.
Mm-hmm.
I hope
I
that
love
answers
that.
your question.
Yes, I love that. It's a great point to, get on that video chat. And that kind of, leads me into another question I had about earlier. You mentioned tone is super important. And, whenever you're interacting with people, usually we're in person. So maybe it's a little easier to manage. But now that we have all these other ways that we're communicating, whether it be video chat, a phone call, or even an email, do you have any recommendations for maybe using a test group to run your messages by before pushing them out to make sure that what you're trying to say is being communicated effectively, whether it is written, maybe it's a video presentation, would you recommend those test groups? And then how, would you advise to put a group like that together?
So that's actually a fantastic question. And I'm a big fan of having someone else reading over very, very important emails before something goes out, before a presentation goes out, just to make sure that what I feel is most important and I want to get across is really understood and is absolutely clear and crisp and straightforward. So let's put it like that. If you have like very important messages, very important communication that needs to go out to, let's say, employees, or that needs to be distributed to a certain group of people, then yes, I would recommend you have someone else reading over that and giving you very honest and straight feedback. So you should better pick someone that you trust and that is going to be honest with you, because otherwise you get kind of fake feedback, and someone will say, oh no, it's good, it's all fine, and you send it out and it was not good at all. So that does make sense for sure when it comes especially to written communication, because again, there we don't have our hand gestures, we don't have the facial expressions to make sure it comes across properly. When it comes to presentations, like here, for example, my PowerPoint presentation, again, I think that does make sense. Before you put something out there, and we know it all, if you put something in the internet, it's there forever. So you better want to make sure that it's clear, it's understandable, and it's actually what you wanted to come across, to get across. So this idea of having a group of people, or maybe sometimes just one person, to double check on the content and making sure it's well understood, it's very effective. So I like that. That's a fantastic idea. Definitely something to keep in mind.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Christina. Does
pleasure.
Anyone else have any questions? I haven't seen any in the chat, but want to make sure we give you guys time if you do have them.
And if any questions are coming up afterwards, you guys have my email address. So just shoot me an email and I'm more than happy to answer and support in the best way possible. I'd love that.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Christina, for all of your wisdom today and for all of those who joined us. I do want to mention just a few notes before we wrap up today, that you can find all of our webinar recordings, including this one. They'll be posted on our YouTube page, but you can find them and information on our upcoming webinars at bbbevents.org. I'll go ahead and put that in the chat box. So if you want to, check out this recording or future webinars, we do have one coming up next week, July 21st. We'll have Dave Clow from Your Hospitality Resource Group to talk about hospitality best practices. So be sure to join us for that. But again, Christina, thank you so much. We're just so glad that you could take the time to chat with us and give us these really great perspectives and tips, because we're all communicating and it's all very different. So we're so glad for you to be on with us today.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure. And all of you, take care, be safe, and get through that. We will get through that, all of us together. And always keep in mind to communicate more and clear and transparently with each other. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, Christina, and thank you all. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
You too. Take care. Bye-bye.